Right. So what we are going to discuss in today's session about the programming structure, because whenever we are working on the programming part, especially while we are wants to work as a development side, it's always important for us to learn the programming. In reference to the programming, in the last session we have discussed about what are the different data types we have: primitive data type, secondary data type, right? So all that stuff was discussed. What is Boolean, right? So all that part, integer, int value, right? So that part we discussed. Means when we are writing any code, so if you can see here, int dot so and so, okay, that's how generally it comes. Those are all we call it as data types. For example, number you are giving, it's called as a integer, okay. So for example, some if else condition statement we are writing, for example, greater than, less than, true or false, yes or no, these are all comes under the Boolean part. Like that, there are different data types which are essentially required. That was discussed in the previous session. Now in today I'm going to discuss about the programming structure. What are the different structures are there in programming? Normally, these programming structures will be falls under 9 parts, right? So consists of programming structure consists of 9 parts. Programming structure consists of
9 parts.
9 parts, right? So these are different parts we have. The first programming structure, the first part is called comments. I'll write down first, okay? Then second, I will explain one by one, okay?
Sure.
First one is called comments. Second one is called declaration. Third one is called import statement. Statement or statements, I can say. Okay. Because when you are writing the program or when you want to see the program, especially we must be knowing, okay, so how this can be all that, okay, that for that purpose. So import statement. The fourth one is called class declaration. Next, we call it as variable declaration. The other one is called constructor implementation. Next one is called constructor implementation, right? So variable declarations, variable has to be declared, constructor declaration. Next one is called method implementation. Next, we call it as static blocks. Last but not least, we call it as non-static blocks. Right, so these are the different programming structures we there, right? So when we are working on the programming part, right? So whenever we want to write any programming, especially Java programming and all, so these programmings are consists of different programming structures. We have comments we need to write in the code itself. At the same time, we have to declare the packages. We have to declare the classes and all that. At the same time, declaration will be comes under the packages and classes. Okay, these are the two things are comes under the packages and classes are called as declarations. Next, there are different statements we want to write, something like import statement, etc. Because you are importing some data, okay, or importing the files. This is all comes under the import statements. Next, after that, variable declarations will be there. At the same time, we need to implement the methods, etc. This is what we call it as method implementation, all that stuff. So whenever you are going to write any kind of comment, any kind of programming structure and all. So this is what something which normally we have to write. Now let us discuss about the first one, which is called comments, right? So what is meant by comments stands for, and how comments will be written in the program, okay? How the comments will be written. Normally, comments will be consists of three type of comments. Comments will be consists of three type of comments will be there. Means if you want to write any comments in the, generally that will be of three different types. The first one is called single line comment. Single line comment. The first one, when we are going to write the comment, the first one is called single line comment. Second, we call it as multi-line comment. Third one is called documentation comment. Okay, these are the different three types of comments we have. So when we are working on the comments, first one is single line comment, second is multi-line comment, third is a documentation comment. Single line comment, if you want to write, you have to use this. This is the symbol. I am making it very simple for you to understand. If you want to write any single line comment, this is the symbol we will be using. This is point number one. Second, multi-line comment means if you want to write a multi-line comment, this is how generally we write. This is how generally we write. This is a single, this is a multi-line comment. Means if you want to write any comment and all that. So multi-line comments is what something which normally we are using this symbol. This is called multi-line comment. Next, the second one is about the documentation comment, right? So documentation comment, we call it as. So whenever we are working on the documentation comment, this is how generally we write. So do remember, Iman, when we are working on the coding part, especially whenever we are working on the coding, it's always important for us to write the code in a perfect manner in such a way, if any single to be more precise, if I say that even single star you have missed or comma or access symbol you have missed, so your code won't get executed. You get the error. That's the reason why learning as well as writing the program is essentially important, and it requires a specific understanding over what exactly it all about. For example, if you want to write a single line comment, so these are all something which you have to be learned and which you have to be updated in regular interval. That is what something from the programming part one should be understood, right? So that's the reason when we are working on the programming, it is always important for us to understand about the comments, right? So what are the different comments we have, right? So at the same time, what are the package declarations, right? So all these things is what something we must be knowing. So in that regard, when we are writing down the comments, single line comments will be like this. If you are writing single line comment, you will be using this symbol. When it comes to the multi-line comments and all, this is what something which normally we will be using. When it comes to the documentation comment, this is what something which we are using over here. Now, if there is some small description you want to write, please write down. Comments, please make a note. Comments, what exactly the comments stands for, right? So what does it mean? If you want to know, this is an answer for that. Comments are the statements. Comments are the statements that are ignored by compiler and interpreter. Comments are statements that are ignored by compiler and interpreter. Comma, continuation. These are used to because there is an interconnect with these comments with the remaining ones, with the class, with the variable, with the constructor, with the method, right? So there is a connect, right? So these are all interconnected. So that's the reason we need to learn. These are the ones which are used to provide explanation about why class means why are we using class declaration. Okay? Why class, why variable, why constructor, why a method. Next, last but not least, why and how, why and how logic is written inside method. Logic is written inside method. Are you writing? Clear? Are you
Yes.
writing? Right. So this is what generally we are talking about. The comments means if you want to know about the comment, because how to write comments is what something which I have shown you. But when it comes to writing of comments and statements, which we are not, which are to be ignored by the compiler and as well as interpreter. Normally, comments are used to provide explanation about the classes, about variables, the kind of constructors, the kind of method implementation methods, and how the why and how the logic will be written inside the method is what something which we will be knowing. So, especially whenever we are learning the coding, means if we want to learn coding, right? So, because Java coding, which ultimately leads to goes to coding programming, especially when we are writing down the guideware projects and all that. So, by reading these comments, so that we will be knowing about how to understand the code. Means if you want, if for example, if there was some code which was written by someone, if you want to know that, so if you read this comment so that you will be knowing what exactly this code is all about. To understand the code, there is a specific thing like to read these comments. If you read the comments so that you will be understood the code. Okay, now the first one about single line comment. Okay, so what single line comment? Single line comment example is this, you can see. Okay, when single line comment will be written. Okay, this is something which you must be knowing. Write down. Single line comment, under single line comment. Okay, under single line comment. So where this can be written and for what purpose? For that reason, you have to write. Single line comment will be used to write, will be used to write class name, will be used to write class name as a file name, will be used to write class name as a file name, comma, you can write on the second point, file name, second. When an informal documentation to describe about, second, when this single line comment is being used, okay? So first one, this is about to write class name as a file name. Second, when an informal documentation to describe about following class name, variable name, constructor, comma, method, etc. Next one. Inside method, next point. Inside in that only. Inside method is the one which is used to comment single lines, which is used to comment single lines, such as variable declaration, such as Variable declaration. Variable initialization. Variable initialization. Object creation. Object creation. Method calling and return statements. Method calling and return statements. Okay, this is what generally the single line comment will be of. Next, second, multi-line comment. Second, what about multi-line comment? Because this is how generally multi-line comment is being used. When you want to write a multi-line comment, I will show you an example to you. Okay. So meanwhile, you please write the description. Multi-line comment will be used to comment a block of the code, in the method, such as conditions, loops, exceptions, or else you can write an exception handling, conditions, loops, exception handling, etc. Right? So if you want to write a multi-line comment, normally enough. Okay, let me explain it. Right? So if you want to write multi-line comment and all that, so wherein here we need to implement a method. Okay, or we can implement the method where we can put, generally if there is any kind of unused logic in the multi-line comment, generally this is what something we have to use it. Now, if you want to write a multi-line comment, this is how generally we write. I'm showing you how to write a multi-line comment here. You are writing all this, right? So you have taken all that. Now, let me explain you how to write multi-line comment. Right. So if you want to write multi-line comment, right? So multi-line comment will be written like this. You can see this. You don't need to write. I will write and I'll show you. Okay. Right.
Okay.
This is how generally the multi-line comment will be written. This is the first statement we want to use it. Okay. For right. So we need to use integer for that. Right. So integer. Let's say, for example, integer I. Okay. Integer I equal to 0. At the same time, for example, integer I, which is lesser than 20, right? So lesser than the 20, because this is a statement we are going to write. So lesser than the 20, wherein I plus plus. Next, this has to be closed. Okay, this statement, whatever that we have written, this method implementation has to be closed. So if you want to close this is what generally we have to close. This way we have to close. Understood? Clear?
Yeah.
Right. So this is the method implementation. Whatever that we have here, this is a method implementation to start this, this is what something we have to write in context to multi-line comment. And if you want to close it, this is how generally this has to be used. Now, there is some condition which we have to write. So if else conditions will be applicable over here. So if else conditions is what something we have to write. So if and conditions as follows. If, for example, I percentage 2, right? So equal to 0, equal to 0. The next, we need to be provided a, normally there are editors. I will show you when I'm writing code from tomorrow and all. So I will show the editor to you how this can be written. Okay. Print ln. Okay. And we need to write down this. This is important. Okay. Because what is to be printed is what something which we must be knowing. This is even number, means you want to present this. Okay. This is what something which we have to write. Right. So even number is what something you have to write. And you can close this. Okay. Right. So this is what and how generally we are going to write down this. Right. So this is something which we are writing over here. Right. So number. Next, else. For example, there is a condition. Right. So condition is applied. For example, else condition is what something which normally are we using to mention it. Right. So else condition we are using. Else you need to write down system dot out dot print ln, where you have to be presenting or presented. This is odd number because there are two numbers, right? So even number and odd number. So if else condition is what something which is applicable over here, right? So here we are using if else condition. So in this if else condition, we must be knowing about whether this is a even number or an odd number is what something which we must be knowing, right? So once it is done, so you need to click upon this, where you have to provide the closure part, right? So for that, generally to mention that this is what and how usually this will be used over here. Next, we need to mention the virtual, right? So either it can be odd number or even number, because this is something which we are writing for odd and even number. Okay, which number is odd number, which number is even number. If you want to know that, generally this is what something which normally are we using over here. Uh, percentage 0 to close this, wherein we need to provide this is even number, where we have to close the statement, and this is odd number, because whatever I'm saying, like conditions and all, everything will be applied, right? So this is what something, the conditions which we must be knowing, right? So this is an even number or an odd number. So this is how generally this variable declarations, whatever the conditions are we applying, right? So everything we have to apply it, and we need to close like this. This is how generally the multi-line comment is what something which normally are we going to write down. Understood? Clear? Is it clear or not?
No, yeah. Yeah.
Right? So this is about the multi-line comment. Now documentation comment right now. Documentation comment. Documentation comment. is used to understand following method, which adds two integer variables. And return integer. Normally, this is how generally, right? So at the rate, for example, I am an author, okay? For example, at the rate author Raj, right? So, or else, for example, which version I am releasing. For example, at the rate version 1.2. Okay, so when I have released the version, for example, since maybe 1st October 2024, okay, so I want to be updated, right? So all these things are comes under the documentation comments. Means if you want to write down any kind of documentation comments, this is what something which normally we have to use, right? So these documentation comments as well as the kind of comments you are mentioning for the documentation comments, these are the methods and as well as parameters which are majorly used to provide a non-Nero values and all that, so that whatever the documentation or the arguments you are going to write will be mentioned in this, right? So these are the three different methods normally we use. One is about comments normally we use in the first one. So one is about the single line comment. So for the single line comment is what will be used here. Next one about the multi-line comment. That is what generally the multi-line comment will be of. And for third one is called documentation comment. This is generally documentation comment is what something will be used in this regard. So after that, documentation comments and all that. So there are different tags which normally we will be using whenever we are writing down the means if you want to recognize the tags and all that. So there are some Java docs will be there. There are different docs and will be used. So Java tags as follows. This is what's because when you're writing the Java code, this is what something which you need to see and understand. Okay. Java tags are as follows. Means how to understand the Java tags. Okay. One is at the rate code. Next, at the rate author. At the rate deprecated. Next, at the rate exception. Next, at the rate link. Next, at the rate param. Next, at the rate return. Next, at the rate since. Next, at the rate throws. Next, at the rate version. Okay, these are the different tags we use because these are all we call it as Java tags. At the rate other, deprecated, exception, link, param, return, since, throws, versions. These are the different tags which normally we will be using whenever there is Java tags if you want to say, right? So if you want to write down the Java tags, this is what something which we have to be used with. Understand? Clear?
Yeah.
Right. So the next step about the package declaration and import statements that we are going to discuss tomorrow. What is package declaration? What are import statements and how this can be? This we are going to discuss tomorrow. Tomorrow I will explain to you. Understood? Clear?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So package declarations we discuss tomorrow. See you then. Bye.
Okay. Bye.